seeing a notification. We are live. Woohoo! All right. Good evening, everybody. This is LA Web Professionals, March 2024. This meeting is online. We will also be sharing via YouTube and on our Facebook account just a little bit after the meeting is done. We welcome everybody that is here joining in. We are glad to have you. Myself, Anissa Barton-Thompson, I'm a Adobe community professional, user group manager, educator, and my partner, Daniel, say hi and introduce yourself. Daniel is also a web and graphic design professional here, and we're both located here in Los Angeles. And I know a lot of you that are joining in are also located in the LA area, but we do get the occasional straggler visitor from all across the United States and sometimes even outside of the United States. So we welcome everybody and invite you to join in with us in future sessions and go back and watch our YouTube channel and see what we've got from our previous sessions. But so today we are welcoming Michael Mondragon, and I'm going to go ahead and pin him right up here so that everybody can see him. And Mike, I want to have you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, how you create, and what your passions are, and then you have the floor. We're already seeing your screen right on board, so I'm going to turn the show over to you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anissa. Thank you, Daniel, for having me. I'm actually from Los Angeles. But I'm actually in Arizona, where I actually was born and raised. And so it's actually rainy over here too, but a nice desert rain. So it's nice to be at my former home. And yeah, thank you for joining me tonight. I'm Michael Mondragon, as Anissa said. I'm a creator, educator. I'm also a Adobe community expert, professional. And I've been a graphic designer for over 30 years and using Adobe tools for just as long. So I've literally grown up on Illustrator, Photoshop. I was using Quark before InDesign. So I actually go way back. I started as a sign painter here in Arizona and at a record shop, which actually has a lot to do with what I'm going to be talking about today. But yeah, I literally just went straight out of high school, straight into sign painting, grew up on desktop applications like Adobe. So I'm very familiar with them, and I've grown to love them, and it's been part of my tool belt ever since. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm going to kind of go a little bit more in depth on kind of what I do. I have not shared a lot of what I do online or out there. It's usually sharing my work, but one thing I'm really working hard on these days is actually getting out there and showing the world how I do things. And recently I've become an educator at Chapman University. I've left that position because I'm going on to some other educational things and some other opportunities. But the one thing that I really, really enjoyed was showing my process. And that's something that I've never really done. So I hope you'll indulge me and kind of let me kind of freestyle here. One of the things that in growing up in the apps is that I never really used the web tools. And I've kind of ignored them a little bit. And so like with Express being, a big push for Adobe right now, there's a lot of like little work tips that are within Express that kind of got me going back. And I actually didn't realize how much I actually did use Adobe on the web. And so like a good chef, a good chef never just like, okay, I'm gonna just make this. No, they actually get their ingredients. They actually make sure that they have enough of them. It's all fresh, and before they actually start preparing a meal. So I wanted to show you a little bit. First off, I'm showing my my Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, please do. I'm also on LinkedIn at Mondragon Design. So please follow me. I'm going to start at a place, and there's a lot of talk about Firefly, which we're going to go into, but I actually use this. It's Adobe stock. I actually use Adobe stock probably more than anything generative AI right now, although I've been experimenting with not only Firefly, with Midjourney, Dolly, and kind of learning those platforms. But I actually use Adobe stock probably as my starting point for most of my projects. So one of the things that I like to do is kind of understand kind of what we're building. If I'm building it for a client or for myself, really what am I trying to accomplish? And I actually was on, I left a YouTube show last year. I was there for a little while, and it was with pumpkin carvers. And if you go to Carvers Creators on Instagram, there's these really, amazing pumpkin carvers. And when I say pumpkin carvers, a lot of people think it's, the standard, the triangles and the mouth. No, they actually use clay tools on pumpkins and create like very ornate faces and expressions, and it's really great. Well, one thing that we did on that show to kind of up the creativity between the three of us was we spun a wheel, and whatever the wheel came up with was what they carved, and then I had to make something out of it. So it created an emotion and a character. So it was always, on the fly, and then we had a week to make it and then present it on the next show. So one of the things that I started doing, because I wasn't pumpkin carving, was I started seeing these titles that were coming out actually, let me go back to this. I can actually show you. So I started going back, and for instance, it could have been Euphoric Goblin or Painfully Happy Aquatic Character. So what I started doing was looking at these as more like band titles. So Euphoric Rodent, Tortured Undead, Dismal Aquatic Character, and so, or Euphoric Cyclops. So I started thinking of these more in more of a like they were band names, and then I would create little things in them that were like little Easter eggs. So like for this one, you can see like I put the CBS logo. There's a Sisters of Mercy album down here. And so I started really getting creative with it. And it was really great to kind of every week, I didn't know what I was going to make, but I had to make something cool that would basically make my other two guys on the show make them happy and put like little touches in there. And then, also doing the copywriting. It was a good creative exercise for me every week. And we did this for 2 years. It's still going on, but I'm not a part of the show anymore. So what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to take I'm not going to spin a wheel, but I'm actually going to do this. I'm actually going to take the word, and I'm just going to look up in here, enraged clown, and I'm just going to see what it gets me. Now, like if I just look in here, there's a lot of good, possibilities here. Again, for time right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to filters. I'm going to go to just photos. And I've already licensed this one because I think I used it in something else. But I'm going to actually, these are two good ones. So I'm actually going to license this one. So I'm going to click on that, and it is saving right now, but it's saving to the wrong place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and it's actually downloading as well. But I actually have an LA Web Pro. So I'm just going to save it to that library. And I'll show you some of the other libraries of where these go. So that is saving right now, slow as ever, because I have a lot of things open. There you go. So right now, so I saved this and I licensed it. And so I could open up that image in Photoshop and I could then start working on it. But then I started thinking about it. I've been hearing that there's Photoshop on the web. And I haven't explored this as much because I have the standalone app. But then I looked at this, and one of the things that when I teach my students as well, I know that there's a steep learning curve sometimes to kind of acclimating yourself to Photoshop. And the fact that there's Photoshop on the web actually really helps in kind of simplifying the process and actually doing some tasks here that I may need to do. And like, for instance, I could upload the image and then start working right away. There's also some quick actions in here. So I'm actually going to click on quick actions here. And there is actually a pretty robust variety of different quick actions that you can do on here. So I can take my picture and create these different looks on it. Or I could go in here and remove the background. Now I'm going to do two things. I'm going to actually work inside Photoshop, the app, but I'm going to, I'm going to choose an image right now. So I'm going to go to my desktop, go to LA Web. And actually, it's actually in my download. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to open this up. So when I started playing around with this actually was really great if I needed to remove a background really quickly. I know that you can do this in Express, and there you go. So now it's selecting the subject. And it's made a mask in here. So like really fast. Now the cool thing is you have your contextual bar down here, and you can view the mask, you can add to the mask, subtract from the mask. So I click on that again, and it's done a really, really good job here. Now, the great thing about it is there is masks. So, and you can, if I press Shift here, I can actually, and then push on the mask, click on the mask. You can toggle in between what that is. I can also go to here. I can pull this below, and I can add a color. So Option Delete will get me this black color right here. And yeah, so it's done a good job. And you can see here that it probably needs some refining, but it did a pretty good job on this straight out of the box. So so pretty good here. So again, using Adobe Photoshop, I was actually very impressed, like how responsive it is and how you can really get a lot of really, really good Photoshop actions without actually open up the app. And if I needed to do something quick, I could actually do it in here. And it's the great thing about it too is, like I said before about the keyboard. So you can see this this foreground and background color. If I push X, I can switch that back and forth. So it actually has the keyboard commands as well. So it recognizes that. And as a power user, that's really important to me, to be able to use the same key commands that I would use in Photoshop. So again, really, really awesome. So another thing that I actually used a lot is Adobe Color. Now, I don't know how many of you use this on a regular basis, but if you don't, I'm going to go over it a little bit here. And I think that you might start using it because of the way that I use it. And so again, I'm not jumping in straight into my design or what I'm going to build. I'm actually kind of thinking a little bit ahead and thinking, well, okay, I have my subjects, and later on, I'm going to kind of make a background for it. I have a process of how I do that. But what are some good color looks that I maybe want to use that are kind of really unique, or maybe something that I'm trying to duplicate? So if you go here, if you go into create, this top bar gets you a lot of different options. We're going to come back to create, but right here on Explore, you can actually see different looks of pictures and then what the colors are within that. So a lot of the times I'll want to use maybe a different color than I used the last time, or if I used red last time, maybe I'll use a blue or a green or something like that. That's different than what I did before. There's also trends here, things that are colored that are trending, and again, you can yeah, it's loading, and so you can get these different things. Now, this is an interesting one right here, and this is new, as it says up there above. You can actually take SVG files and then upload them and start recoloring your artwork, which I think is super exciting. And to do it on the web and do it quickly, and you don't have to open the app, and you can, and then you can also save them or download them. So it's really great. Here is your libraries. If you're Adobe Creative Cloud user, you just come here, and I have a whole bunch of different libraries here. But the way that I really use this, so if you were to come to here and do create, and you probably would be, if you didn't know what this was, you'd probably be overwhelmed by it. So I'm gonna kind of break it down a little bit. You have right here, this has a little triangle right here, and this is your base color. So as you see right here, let me see if I can do this. So I'm gonna make that the base color. Is it gonna go here? Actually, I'm gonna reset this real quick. There we go. Okay, so if I drag this around, it's gonna all stay together right here. And I start like taking that, and I can go up and down and change the colors. The great thing about it is you can actually make other color combinations, monochromatic. You can actually have these different configurations. So if you change the color, you can do that by changing this, but with the levels right here. And you can also sample colors. Let me reset this real quick. You also have these different color harmonies and different color modes. But what I like to do is this. So I like to extract themes. So I can upload a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I actually have two files here that are very different. So I have some album covers that I like. And this is a Tool album that has a great, really, really dense color to it. And I also have this old album from 1989. Any New Order fans out there? I always loved this because it was fluorescent, but it wasn't overpowering. And I always loved these colors, but I wanted to get these colors. So how would I do that? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the Tool album, and I'm actually going to put it in here, and boom, right out of the box, you get some really good varied colors in here. And then using the color extractor here, you can actually make, if it needed to be a little bit brighter or a little bit more muted or deep, dark, and you can start doing this. Also, you can move these colors around if you wanted to, and actually hone in on it. And yeah, so you can get some really, really cool looks with this. The great thing about this is once you have this in here, you can actually get gradients out of here as well, which is cool. So you can save these gradients depending on how many stops you want. This one is 3, so it only has 3 colors here. You can actually move this to actually have the placement of it, move it over if you wanted to. If I wanted to create more stops here, you could actually have a lot more variance to what you want. I'm going to reset that. A cool thing about this as well is you can actually see if accessibility issues. So this is where you can start putting that in here. And actually, let me go back to here. And it doesn't, where is it? It was right there. Yeah, so there's actually, right, oh, actually it's right here. So these colors now, if you go back to that color wheel, if you click on this, check for accessibility, it'll actually open up in the accessibility, and you can see if it passes colorblind different settings. There's also a contrast checker. And again, you can get lost in here really quickly. So let me go back here to extract theme. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this image. So I'm going to click here. I'm actually thinking for this project, I'm going to use the New Order album. Okay, so again, straight out of the box, gives me a lot of really good colors. Again, I can mess around with this, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this right here. I'm going to take the other side of that gradient, and that actually looks really good. So I like that. And so what I can do is I can actually save this to my color themes right here in LA Pro. So it'll show up in my color libraries under LA Web Pro. I can actually give it some tags right here. And you can publish this as well. I'm not going to publish it, but I am going to save it. Okay. So if I go back here to color wheel, now this is something that I like to do as well. So I have these colors right here. There's also right here, download as JPEG. And I like to use this, what it creates for me inside my Photoshop. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm actually going to open this up. And there you go. So it actually downloaded this. It actually has the hex codes. It actually has the RGB colors. So very cool. So what I'm going to actually do is, since I have Photoshop open, I'm just going to copy, and I'm going to paste this inside because I'm going to use that later. I'm going to name that color. Now that we're in Photoshop, I'd like to go over a little bit of kind of how I use Photoshop. Now, a lot of people would do this. They would do Command N and start here and pick a size and start going. Because I am usually pressed for time in my creative endeavors, I create a lot of templates for myself. And this is one of them that I would use quite regularly. And it has a couple different things in here. First of all, it has a background. And this background, you see that it reveals this robot. But this is usually what I use for my background. And so I would start here. The reason I have this covered is, and this picture right here, is I have a smart object right here, and it has some filters on it. And these are usually the filters that I like to use. But I'm actually going to go through the process of showing you how I made those filters on a smart object, rather than just me dragging that on top of my smart object. So let's do that now. So before we had that picture of that clown. So actually, yes. Right, so here we go. So I'm gonna just copy, and I'm going to, there we go. Paste that right there. I'm gonna change my background color to that white. And first of all, now I'm gonna take this picture, and whenever I pull a picture in, the first thing that I usually do is go in and make it a smart object. And you could do that a number of different ways. I usually right click and go to convert to smart object. But here's a little tip that some people know and some people don't, but I use it quite a bit because I sometimes don't like going in here, going like this, searching for something. I'll go to the help. And what I'll do is I'm just going to put in smart object. I just put in smart. And right here under this, it's convert to smart object. I would have to know that it's under layer, smart objects, convert to smart objects. I sometimes just put smart, and convert to smart objects. So very easy. You can do this for a lot of things if you wanted to do a radial blur right there. So boom, and it shows you exactly where it's at. It's something that I use quite regularly. I ask it. I said, if it says help, I use the help. And so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go down here. And so we went here before, and I'm going to the advantage of smart objects is this. So if I were to take this picture and make it that small, and then if this wasn't a smart object and then I resized it back up, it would actually be blurry. The pixels would be all off, and that's not what I want. The beauty of this is it stays intact. If I were to double click on this, I still have my original picture here, and it's all good to go. So I'm able to resize it without all those pixels getting crushed and losing any detail. So that's one advantage of it. The other advantage is that you can put multiple different filters on it. So that's usually what I do for a lot of these pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to size this up just a bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. Now I could go to the help. I just wanted to show exactly where it's at. So I'm going to go to this. I'm going to set it at 150, 8 and 8, which is already set at. The beauty of this, it creates this mask, but also has the filter. All the small smart filters are right there. And so I'm going to actually put another one on here. So filter, where is that? They're stylized. There we go. Oil paint. So this one I'm going to do 5, 3, 0.1, and the bristle detail. No, there's no bristle detail in this one. Now I can also preview it right here, and you can see I'm getting a really good effect. So like I'm going to actually go in here. You get this really kind of surreal look to it. And if I turn off it, that's what it was, and that's what it's kind of turning into. Now, you think that would be enough, but it's never enough. Sometimes in here, you don't want to overdo it, but to create different looks, sometimes you have to kind of finesse it with some more. So I'm actually going to go to here. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to put a surface blur on there. And the radius is 20 and the threshold is 10. So it kind of definitely gives it a flatter look. If I turn this off, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a flatter look. So on this one, bear with me for just a second. Okay, filter, and then now I'm going to go into filter gallery. So filter gallery, and that's where I'm using the poster edges, and I'm going to get that in there. And now I'm going to use the poster edges. I'm going to use the thickness of 10, intensity of 0, and the posterization of 6. Sometimes you can play around this, but I like getting a lot of the details in it and getting that really kind of cool, almost like painted look on it. So, okay. So, yeah, there we go. And then for a good measure, we're actually going to have like a top layer, and I'm actually going to do the oil paint again. So filter and stylize and oil paint. There we go. So I'm going to use the same parameters we used before. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the smart filters. So that's what we started with, which is more obviously a more realistic look. You can see there's a lot of detail in the shirt, which actually helps for a lot of these different things. And it kind of gives it this kind of like real painted look. and very surreal, very out there as well. So now, one of the most important things that I always tell my students, I also tell myself, Command S, save. You never know when something can go wrong, and it's happened to me a million times, and I hate losing a lot of my work. Now, one thing that you'll probably notice is that there's in between the arms and up above the arms, there's the hair and everything. Or sorry, there's you can see a lot of the painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into here. I'm going to double click on there. So I'm inside the smart object. And so I'm going to go to color range. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to knock this down quite a bit. So, and then I'm going to create my mask, and I'm going to invert it. Now, for the sake of this demonstration, I would probably go in here. I'm going to do this really quickly. I'm just going to make a marquee on it. And I'm going to option delete. So it's going to turn white. I'm just going to go fast with this one because I'll probably take the levels right here and do that and pull this back quite a bit. I'm not super concerned about the edges right now. If I was taking my time doing this, I would definitely do a better job on this, but I think this will do for now. So I created that mask really quickly. And now when I save, I'm saving the smart object. And I go back into it. Now, the really cool thing about this is if I were to make this color, you can see it's still got a little bit of edge there, which I could do, but it's but for the sake of time, this is actually pretty good. All right, so now Command S again. So one of the things that I'm going to go back here. So I want a background, and I'm actually going to start using the Adobe Firefly here. Now, Adobe Firefly, yes, it's in Photoshop. It's and I could have used that very easily. But I actually like coming in here as well, because I've heard about Firefly at adobe.com, and I wanted to test it out and see if there's any subtle differences, if there's anything else. And the first thing that I noticed was that there are some things now available in Adobe Express. You can do text to template. You can also text to vector graphic available in Adobe Illustrator. So just coming here, I was informed about a lot of new things that are happening in AI and going forward with the Adobe. But the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a prompt here because I want to create a background for what I'm making. So I'm just going to click in here. I'm going to make an open field with a circus tent with blue skies and mountains in the background. So going to hit generate and let it show me what it can do. And I didn't put any other parameters on here, just any of the effects or anything. And it did a pretty good job. It started out. The thing that I notice about it is I have photo selected. I've kind of, from before, you saw that we were making something that was kind of surreal and almost like painted, and kind of, so it didn't have a realistic stock image look. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click this button over here to make it art, and then maybe up the intensity a little bit and see if there's anything else here. Maybe hyper realistic. We were talking about that, so I'm going to click on that button. There's a lot of other things you can do with this: color and tone, lighting, composition. There's even advanced settings. So you could really dive deep on this one. But for the sake of time, I'm going to just make it art and hyper realistic. I'm going to regenerate that and see what it gets me. So some really, really cool results from this. Again, I can take these and make more. I could take one and go further with it. But I like the way this looks. You can actually tell it that this is good or this is bad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here. Again, you can now that up here on this share part of it, you can go up here, you can download this, copy the link, copy the image, open in Adobe Express, submit to the Firefly community, or save to a library. But what I'm going to do for this one is I'm actually going to download it, and gives you all the transparency and AI. So it puts all the content credentials in there. Actually, I will not, I wanted to show again because I'll probably do this at another demonstration. But I will continue, and there it goes, it downloaded. So I'm going to go down to my downloads. I'm going to open it up, and here we are in Photoshop. Now, one of the things that we kind of take for granted in Photoshop, it gave us the image, it gave us what we wanted. But the thing that I always want to know is, what size is this? So going into here, going to File, image size. Am I not seeing it? There we go. Image size under image, of course. All right. So it's 72 DPI, but 28 inches. Now, a lot of my work, I like to print. I like to start at 300 or at least anything over 144 because I usually do stuff for web and I want it to be good and sharp because there's a lot of details in here. But I also like to make stuff for print. So usually I'll start big on my project and usually dwindle them down so they're more accessible for web later. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take this. I'm actually going to Command A and Command C, and I'm going to copy that and put it in the background here. So you'll see, because it's a 72 DPI file, it's going to be small in my 300 DPI file here. So this is where smart objects really help, and it doesn't lose a lot of the detail in it. So I'm going to convert that to a smart object. Command T, I'm going to transform that. Pushing Option right now and Shift so I can get that above. I'm losing a little bit of the tent, so I kind of want that back there. But you see the problem. We have a little bit below. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to double click on the actual smart object. I'm going to take the canvas size, and I'm just going to make this 3600 by 3600. Okay. And then I'm going to make this marquee. I'm going to push Shift. There we go. And then I'm going to Shift Command I, which inverts that selection. And then I'm just going to do generative fill right here, generate. So it's going to create me more of a bigger landscape, so I can actually isolate this tent in more a way I want to. So again, kept all the dimensions, gave me a lot of extra working room here. There's different versions of this. I think I like without that tree. That actually seems a little bit better. That one's probably the best right there. So what I can do, I'm just going to Command E and put those together, save my smart object, and then go back to this. And now you can see it's much bigger. I have much more wiggle room. So yeah, that helped out a lot. I may want to maybe use a little bit more sky, maybe putting that behind there. So I can use this above for my typography, but you see there's a bit of a contrast problem here. So, and what I'm gonna do is actually, okay, so I have that, I've committed my layer back here. What's great is I can take these smart filters and I can actually copy, and I'm pushing Option right now as and I'm pulling these filters onto my layer behind. So it's giving it the exact same filters that are on there. So let me actually get rid of this really quickly and show you. So it gives that same kind of hyper realistic look to this, and it does a really, really neat job of that. So there we go. Now, one thing that I'll probably do here is I like to do this. I like to either take this a gray or a darker gray and use this color and just push down the opacity a little bit. So it kind of gives it this, and I like to just see, give it some dimension a little bit. And the reason I do that is I don't have a color. The color might influence kind of what I'm doing, and I kind of see what is good contrast here. So remember we did this before. What I'll do here is I'll actually go here and I'll select these colors into my color palette. So I'm going to turn off web colors. So you see here, I can actually use these colors really quickly. And this is how I kind of, it's almost like a painter using a palette. I just kind of use these and what looks good? What looks good? So I think a dark color like this might work. I'm going to turn off that layer. I'm going to double click here and then I'll select that. So it really helps out the contrast, and it stays with the color and the colors that I'm trying to get across here. So this, I get to this point and I start thinking to myself, I want to add some more elements, including type. So to do that, I'm actually going to give you a little bonus tip. I didn't put this in my presentation at first, but I thought it was actually something that it definitely, people need to know more about this, that Adobe Fonts actually is super useful for so many projects. Not only for when you come to this and see all the different fonts that you can use and learn more about different foundries, different designers. There's over 25,000 fonts for you to use if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud account. So the one thing, if I were to make one UI UX suggestion here, that was my specialty for 10 years. I started UI UX 10 years ago, and it's for this reason. If you go to this top and you were to click photos, you'd actually go to Adobe stock or illustrations and vectors. It takes you actually away from here. I would put a little icon that says it takes you away from here. So actually, if you do this, there you go. You go to Adobe stock. So the fact that it's right here, it's I would put it somewhere else, but it wasn't in my way. But you want to go here, which is the underneath of it, and that's where you can start browsing the fonts and see them kind of in action. I actually have sample text in here. So Enraged Clown, and if I put if I take out the images right here and list, you can actually see these different fonts. You can actually, if I wanted a clean font, if I wanted a friendly font, but I want a funky font. And if I go back here to my grid and I put in images, you can actually see a lot of these different types of, That's more accurate right there. So the grid, I can actually see kind of what I'm getting. And for the sake of time, I actually have a font that I want to use in this. And it's since we're talking about musicians and albums and things like that, I'm actually going to use double bass right here, which I like to call double bass, but it is not. It is double bass. And this one's a very eclectic font, very, very cool. And the cool thing about it is, and I sometimes like to do this as well, is I'll copy the image. We're actually going to open up Illustrator here. And I already have this in my Enraged Clown ready to go. If I copy that image and then I paste, I can actually use this color palette to kind of help me a little bit in this process. So literally I can sample that color, sample that color. So again, I use that a lot in my workflow, like something to, it's a good contrast and it's good use of color in it. So I usually kind of do that really quickly, and I actually can actually see it as well, how it's used. So going back to here, I could do one of these 4 fonts, but I'm actually just going to add the family. Okay, so fonts available in your apps. So go back to Illustrator here. I'm going to select this font, double bass, and there it is. Now, the thing that I liked about this was it actually had some kind of variance in it. And so right now I'm pushing Option and Shift so I can make a duplicate of this. I haven't decided, so which one did I want to do? Since there's more letters in this one, I'm probably going to make it the smaller one. So let me do, I'm going to do, okay. So I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to use, let's see here. That looks good right there. So pulling this up, again, they work really well together. Since vectors are free, I'm going to Option drag this, and I'm going to save my original one. I'm going to Command Shift Option and commit to outlines. I'm going to Command Shift G, and I'm going to ungroup that. So I can actually move these around a little bit better and with a little bit more accuracy. Yeah, I mean, I really like the way it is. That's a little bit funky right there, but I do like the way that it kind of connects the two right there. Again, it's just having fun with the type and getting it together. I probably will put this up there. Yeah. Sometimes I'll fill in these little gaps with different things, or even take this and maybe turn it just slightly, just so it's not exactly how it came in. I like the way that it maybe butts up against that that W. It's supposed to be dirty. So I'm going to shift and just make it bigger here. So Enraged Clown. Now, the thing that I like to do, instead of doing it black, I'll probably shift this to white, sample that color, and I'll drag it over here. So I'm going to copy. I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and I'm going to paste as a smart object. So I could also add this to my current library if I wanted to, but I'm just going to do this and Enraged Clown. I'm going to scale that up a bit. And because it's under this and there's an opacity, there's an opacity here. So I'm actually getting a kind of an effect that I didn't, kind of serendipity there. I wasn't expecting that. But I'm going to move this clown down a little bit. I'm going to And this is also something too. I right click and I'll find my different layers so I can select that really quickly. I made a faux pas. I should be naming my layer. So there's my clown. I have my color. I have my tent. And I have my text. Okay, so I'm going to see here, because I never like to have things exactly straight. There's no straight lines in nature. So I'll do this. And I'm going to go down here, have my text. So I'm just going to move it over a little bit. All right. So, I can go here. I can go to my effects. I can put just a slight little shadow. I'm not going to be super heavy-handed about my shadows. But let's see. I'm going to do this. See if I can get some good size here, just to get some separation from it. So again, if I had more time, I would definitely go in and finesse this. I wanted to show kind of like how I kind of make things. I also have, as a part of this, is I actually have, and this is in my master file that I made. I actually have, I'm going to turn off these really quickly. I actually have grids here. So let me turn on my dark. I actually have grids here. So whenever I have something, I like to work on grids. And I have these as something, if I was going to put like a gradient or strip through here, I would use kind of these to kind of guide me. I also command colon or semicolon here. I also have other guides in here that I already pre-made, so I don't have to make them over and over again. So that's something that in my workflow that I like to use, and it actually serves me really well. The next part that I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to take these layers and I'm going to select them all. I'm actually going to duplicate them. So every single layer that I have, I'm going to make now another set of them. And you'll see what happens here is, now that I have all those selected, I'm going to Command E and I'm going to flatten them. So I have a flattened version of what you're seeing here in layers. So if I click that off, it's exactly the same. And one thing I like to do at the end of my process, again, I would be finessing this a lot more and putting different things in there. But usually, sometimes these tend to be kind of flat. And again, you can do curves on these and get them to be much more rich, bring out the highlights. But if I do that, the second part I like to do is this little trick right here. So I'm going to duplicate this flattened layer. So I'm just going to put this flattened. Okay. And then I like to go up to here to high pass. So I'm actually going to make this high pass. Okay. So on the high pass layer, I'll come up here. I'll go to other, filter other, high pass. Okay. Now I'll put the radius a little bit higher. So I'm really getting those details out in this. And it kind of gives it like an HDR type of look when I go to overlay. And I don't know if you can see it really good or not, but I'm going to toggle this on and on. You'll see like there's a lot more detail in it, especially back here. So that's something that I like to do a lot. And so I'm going to take this, Command S, save. I'm going to take my flattened and high pass. I'm going to make another copy of this. Okay, I'm going to put those together. So high pass, blend. Okay, so I have this high pass and it's on one layer, flattened. I'm going to Command A, Command C, and I actually have an album cover here. So literally, it's a pre-made album cover. It has a lot of really cool things on it. The plastic stickers you can move around, the plastic overlay you can lay around, you can turn it on and off. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go in here. There's another smart object. I'm going to double click on this smart object, and I'm going to turn this one off, and then I'm going to paste. I'm going to make this a smart object, and I'm going to fit that right in there. So Rage Clown. So save the smart object. And there it is. And the cool thing about it is there's different highlights and shadows, and I can move this, can move the sticker around. I think it's like so it looks like an old album. I could do an overall color range on. Actually, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to bump up brightness and contrast on this. So let's see. Oh, it's only doing it there. That's not what I wanted. I want to do an overall one. There we go. So get some contrast in there. So really quickly, you can get these really great looks. Obviously, you can see the advantage of having just templates where you can throw things in there, and pre-making them really helps the process. And so what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to, I'm going to push Shift right here. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to go to crop. And much like we did with the other file, I'm going to duplicate all of here. And then I'm going to Command E, flatten that. And so I have this. I'm going to Command S and save that. So I still have my album cover if I wanted to go back in there and make this, but I have a flattened version of this. So I can go, if I wanted to tweak it a little bit more, I could. I could also now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quick export as a JPEG. Go to LA fonts here. Now I'm going to put it in my Express folder. So I'm going to go album. Okay. So now if I go here to Adobe Express, I have a lot of different things. Express is definitely covered by a lot of people, but the way that I use it is I go up to here to the blue button and say I want to make an Instagram story or a flyer or something like that. That's where I would do this. You can actually scroll down here as well and do different things with it. And the great thing about it is I have, whenever I post anything, I have my brand set up. So, you can do that right here. You can create a new brand, but let me go back here and just click on social media, make a square Instagram post. Okay. So you can go to media. I'm going to upload from device. I'm going to go here, LA Web, Express, and there's my album. There's my enraged clown. And I'm going to size it up right here. So you see, like this workflow, I can get a lot of good results really quickly and share it. And yeah, that's how I've been using Adobe, but also the apps. And it's been really great for me. And you can see we're working on your file still. It's still a big 300 DPI file. So there you go. So I can do it to my Instagram. I can actually put everything that you need to share this story. And yeah, so that's how I've been using a lot of these Adobe products. But also you can see I've gotten really fast. I've covered a lot of ground. And yeah, that's my presentation for tonight. I'm sure that there's a lot more I could do here, but I hope that was enjoyable and just seeing my process.
Absolutely. I thought it was absolutely fascinating to see all of these album covers that you put together. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I was asking, I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions if you have them. I know that Doug was asking earlier, when you're working with Adobe fonts, is there, that you know of, any way for you to be able to type and say you were making multiple things where you were trying out the Enraged Clown album title, that you could have it remember that text in the sample text so that you don't have to keep typing it over and over again to see what it looks like?
Yeah, you may have noticed that when I did this at the beginning, like I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to
Sure.
see if like when I went to browse all, it's still in there, my Enraged Clown. So sometimes I'll go back and I'll see other and so and then you also have these different things where you can get these different looks as well. So I don't know if you can have multiple. I think that that's a great idea to have
Yeah.
multiple things where you can actually have different looks on there. Because there's times when I'll be like, oh, that would have been really good for this. So I agree with that. I'm going to definitely suggest that.
Okay.
Yeah, what I was doing, I've got a client with the phrase Carino for a logo, and I'm looking for fonts that it looks nice. And the thing is, you can't just kind of guess by looking at the family because it could say Carino or it could look like it says casino or
Yes.
garlic or
Yes.
and what could be a lovely font could look really ugly in those letters. And
Agreed.
if I could just have it stay there and explore different typefaces.
Yeah.
But what did you do here? You had it in the search before you hit browse all.
Yeah, I was playing with it before, and because like when you I'm just gonna I just copied it or cut it. But like when I go back, there will be nothing in there, but it actually stayed in there from the last time. I think what I had last time or the time before that was in there. So if I just put that in there, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays in there. So that's kind of a cool thing. But I think there is a possibility for having down at the bottom of here is it's kind of saving text and different things. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
It,
because when I talked to Adobe about that, I had to go like, explain it 7 times to get it through somebody's thick head to uh and even then I couldn't get them to take it as a suggestion. They just kind of, ended up saying, no, you can't do it.
Right, right.
And half
Yeah,
the time when they tell you, no, you can't do it, that's not true. So,
right. I
I
also
will give a quick tip that I think could be helpful. I know that there are some like small applications that you can install on Mac computers that will basically act like a clipboard history that you can use. And Windows, if you're on Windows, it's always had a clipboard history. So you can
Yeah, it's
store
Windows
up to
V.
20 different
yeah.
items.
And,
Yeah, Windows is
uh,
awesome.
of course, I already had the word in my clipboard, and
Mhm.
but every time it goes back to that stupid quick down fox, and I have to select it and
Right,
paste it
exactly.
over and over and over again. It
We get it. We get
Oh,
it.
yeah. I wanted to point out one thing in this as well. You'll notice that I have it in lowercase and uppercase, and
Right.
Yes.
that's usually because you can see here sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't. So you can actually get different suggestions like this, or there's different examples here. Even this uppercase. Sometimes the stuff doesn't show up. So I always want to get, which one looks better right away. So that's just a little pro tip.
Yeah, sometimes like what I was working with, I had an initial cap and then I had it again all lowercase.
Mm-hmm.
It's, because sometimes the uppercase looks terrible.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't have an uppercase.
Right.
Sometimes it looks better if you use upper than lower, you can't predict.
Perfect. Yes.
Right. There was another question I was going to ask regarding Adobe Color. What do you do to make sure that your graphics and images that you create, are you always using the accessibility tools in Adobe Color? Are you using any other tools in conjunction with your Adobe products?
Not in my creative work, but usually in my UI UX work, usually in my web work. And so it's actually a really good for that. And it's something that I've been going outside of this for years using other
Right.
tools. And
Right.
I'm like, it's right here. I also have a bit of color blindness with purples and greens. So I actually learned how to mix colors. It's probably why I'm more keen on color and learning colors because of those little disabilities. But I actually feel that I'm better now because of this. And if I would have had this 20 years ago, I would have, it would have been even better sooner. So, but yeah, for my accessibility work is more in my UI UX stuff rather than my creative.
Right. And if you don't mind, if you can click back on the accessibility tools, um, I think it's really important for designers, video editors, content creators, for social graphics, anything, to be aware how important it is to check that, because supposedly the most recent stat says something like 60 to 65% of white males over the age of 40 have some form of a color blindness.
Yep.
And that's something that we shouldn't be taking for granted across the spectrum, across anybody. So just to be able to have a tool that has everything right there, I think is super important.
Yeah, and
Is it over 40?
So over the age of 40, yeah.
So adult onset color blindness?
Right. And there's, I think it's like 30 different types of color blindness. So different, it could be red, green, could be blue, purple, could be any combination. And they all have their own separate designations. But that supposedly it is that prevalent in our population that it's something that we really should be taking into consideration.
Yeah, and it's something that I, as a graphic designer, I thought that I could never share that with anybody. I've only recently shared it. I think I saw
Sure.
Morty Golding admitted it, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? I'm just like, and so the fact that and then also like I can't even believe that this passes accessibility, which is even crazier. But you can actually switch it right here, the different levels to see. But the fact that these pass, now it fails. It fails in the AAA.
Right.
But there's actually another thing too, and I don't think a lot of people know about this. So if you search here to see if I can, yep. So in here in Photoshop, you actually have a color blindness setup, and so when I showed people this, that you can actually set it to this in the proof setup. They're just like, they were blown away that this even existed. So
Wow.
it's something that I've known about for a long
I
time.
didn't know.
Yep.
That's awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they also have something similar in InDesign as well. I'm assuming maybe Illustrator as well.
Hmm.
Oh, I
Um,
could check. Yeah.
yeah. There's one more question that we wanted to double check with you. So now that Photoshop for the web is out and available and kind of passing muster for a lot of folks, do you find yourself working more in web or in the desktop application?
It's always going to be hard to get away from the desktop application. It's just more my comfortability. The beautiful thing about it is, for my teaching, it's a godsend because that way I don't need a computer. I don't need my computer. I don't need, my mouse that, my special mouse that I use, my gaming mouse that I use. So I think that it's for my teaching, it's great, but also it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, so it doesn't overwhelm people. So I think, but the thing that I do like about it is that it has certain little tasks, quick tasks that I can use really quickly, or I could teach other people instead of me going into Photoshop and showing them how to make a mask out of something. They can just take the background out, and it's really easy.
That's awesome. I'm sorry, we got another question that just came. Leslie says, any web link related to your presentation, please? Oh, so we are actually live right now on YouTube, and I will share that link in the chat here for anybody that wants to come back and watch and or even better share. So feel free to share that out with your own communities, coworkers, friends, and family. So,
Awesome.
okay, any other questions? And
I don't have a question, but I
those
have a
are
tip.
joining, just unmute and come on in. Go ahead, Bradley.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I didn't have a question, but I have a little bit of a tip for you guys.
Sure.
On the Photoshop generation within Photoshop, it is set to a 1 megapixel limit at the moment. So if you set your selection to 1024 by 1024 and select an area and generate in that area, you'll get a much higher, crisper generation. And if you do your entire artboard, that's much larger.
That's a
I
great
like
tip.
that. That's a great tip. Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Are you saying that a smaller selected area for fill or whatever will get better attention and detail than a larger area?
Correct. Yeah. So if you generate something that's larger than 1024 by 1024, what it's actually going to do is it's going to generate a 1024 by 1024 and then upscale it.
mm,
But
So
you don't want to do a whole bunch of them sections at a time.
yeah, I can't remember the YouTuber, but he also does a lot of YouTube tips. He's an Indian descent and has that
Oh yeah.
really tall hair. I can't remember his name.
Unmesh.
Unmesh.
Amesh. Yes, yes.
Pix
He
and
actually
perfect.
created a free plugin for this. Exactly. And it will go through and stack. So you could select your whole area, and then when you hit the generate, before you hit the generate, you select his tool, and then it will tile out the
Right.
generation.
Right.
But keep in mind, it does every generation that you do, you're using one of your generation credits.
That's right.
Got it.
Ah.
That's helpful.
But if you're working on something that's very large and you want to get a really good detail out of it, you do that.
Oh yeah, so Mike is showing his
Right there.
current credit. Do they renew every month?
That's a very good question. I believe that they do.
They
Monthly.
renew on your, I believe, on the beginning of your billing cycle.
Ah, good to know.
Yeah, that's great to know. And I expect this to go down. Having 1600 is going to be not always the standard. That's my belief.
I'm wondering if
I
maybe
have
they'll
hit my
create a
limit
pricing.
several times.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're going to create like a pricing plan that is
Well, they
similar.
already do. They have extended credits that you could purchase extra credits on top of your existing account for the remainder of the month. They do not roll over, so you have 30 days to use up those credits or they just disappear.
Right.
Wow.
That's a little bit of a problem that I don't like, because if I pay for the credits, I should be able to use them.
I agree.
And then just my given credit get tacked on. But
Hey,
essentially,
thanks for that info. That's like need to know stuff that nobody tells anybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was gonna try to get these guys to sponsor me, but they're pretty dang cheap. These little card sets.
Mhm.
It's the Essentials card deck. And the print company is C&T Publishing. Um, far cheaper than a Pantone, but gets you like quickly looking at colors, because most of the time I'm not doing exact Pantone matching. I'm
Right.
just getting something close to the color that they're wanting. I can hand them this card deck and they can look through all the colors and pick out what colors they're wanting to do. And then you get the hex color, the CMYK, or the RGB value off of them.
Yeah. Speaking of Pantone, does anybody happen to know what this year's selected Pantone color of the year is? We should make a contest and have a prize for the first person
I
to
don't know.
Pantone.
I completely had boycotted Pantone. They did me wrong. About
Oh,
$50,000 in equipment went to the trash
wow.
Ooh,
because they removed themselves from Adobe.
yeah.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
there was
I
a big
I
controversy.
talked to Adobe about that. Adobe said it would cost $20 per month per license
Mhm.
to use Pantone. So Pantone priced themselves out of the business.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to find other creative and unique ways to stay current with everything that's going on. So,
Yeah. And if you really have a good relationship with a print shop, ask them to print out a color chart.
mhm,
And what you do is you just go off of that chart to pick your colors.
right.
If you know that you're going to always print through that print shop, it's the easiest way to do it, because trying to do all this Pantone matching, and now you have to pay $15 a month per licensed user. So
Yeah,
when you have a print shop of 100 people, that's quite a bit of money for a print shop per month just
right.
to be able to say we could Pantone match. So
Indeed, indeed. I think we have answered all of the questions that came in. So Michael, I just want to say thank you again. You did a fantastic job on your presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us here, everybody that's come in. I'm going to stop the recording in just a second, but do stay tuned. I think we're going to do our next LA Web Professionals presentation will be in June. I think either the 17th, the 24th. So stay tuned. We'll have information ready to go pretty soon. And we welcome you back again. So thank you, everybody that's joined us, and we'll see you next time.